I will simply shout.
Try saying something, guys.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, can
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, professional setup out the window. Dead.
Wait.
Audio is clear now.
Audio's clear now.
There we go.
Hold up. We're cooking.
There we go. Meal served. We have audio. Wait, there was no audio. I went on this entire tirade with no sound. Are you kidding me right now?
Don't worry. Third time. You've had 2 takes.
That's one.
You're gonna nail the third.
Oh Lord. All right. Goodness gracious.
All right, cue up the Battlefield Marine rant. Go.
Yeah, Battlefield Marine needs to be banned. Get that card out of here, please. No. Anyway, oh my Lord. Okay, so everybody, I have Joshua Freeman-Birch, also known as Yehosera, here. As some already know, we missed. There's some. I went on a rant. I already went through everything. Oh my God! All right, I'm gonna do this real quick. Shout out to Jordan.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah. All right, doing it live. We're fucking doing it live. Sorry. Shout outs to Jordan and Joshua here for winning their PQs. All the other PQ winners in the community, awesome job. Congratulations to you guys. Our testing team, we had 5 out of the 8 were in the top 8 in Richmond. Awesome job.
So if we're going to redo this, can I just interrupt you and, can I get a shout out for bubbling in 9th? Can we just extend it to the top 9?
All right,
to make
Andrew got 9th on his, he missed top 8 because his opponent drew with him.
I let it go once, but, hearing it twice.
It happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, all you missed were the shout outs. And some terrible banter, but it is what it is. So I appreciate you guys. Sorry for missing 10 minutes of blank audio, but we're gonna go ahead and get into it. We're gonna talk about this weekend. Let's start there. How'd you guys feel about this weekend? Let's start with you, Joshua. How'd you feel about your meta and your event and everything about your weekend run?
I felt. I obviously feel good because I defended my title and won the Brighton PQ again. The top cut was very hostile to Ray. Appears that a lot of people are gravitating towards decks like Vader and Palpatine and green red heroism that isn't Sabine. Those are decks that you're not very happy to see as Ray. You'd much rather take control back to back to back to back. But still managed to get through it, so she's still got some fight in her. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Winning it back to back and then also calling your shot. You're like, I'm playing this. I don't think it was any secret that you were not going to play that.
Well, usually I swap deck every event, but I was...
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Well, I saw in his Discord.
Maybe one of the very first events. Yeah. This was probably one of the very first events you stuck to the same deck, right? After a win or a top cut.
I was gonna play hand 1 blue, but I honestly just didn't want to re-sleeve. So yeah, that's how we ended up playing Ray again.
Laziness gets the best again.
Even Han 1 blue was been a throwback for you because you did win another PQ with that as well.
That was the deck I used to win the PQ the first time, so I thought maybe run it back again.
Gotcha. Defend the same PQ with the same deck. Got it.
Exactly. It's like in Pokemon, right? You don't play a gym leader and then come back for the rematch and then change type. You're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
I always ran Blastoise and just farmed the 8 gym leaders. Like, come on now. Only one Pokemon. So, how about you guys? Andrew, you went ahead and you placed 9th. You were the only X11 that did not make top 8 out of breakers.
Boo.
That's
fine.
Oh man,
it was still fun. The event was fun. The hardest part of the event was the AC going out. Feeling like we were playing in the jungle. I was just like sweating, and I was like, "Why am I so stressed out at a PQ? What the hell's going on here?" And I was like, "Is anyone else feeling this way?" And everyone else was like, "Yeah, no, we're dying out here."
Yeah, it was.
But
it was so hot in there. Like it was cooler to stand outside than it was inside. Was how bad it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
outside was pretty hot too. So
yeah. Like don't get me wrong. The place was great. There's plenty of space. The workers, the everything about the event outside of that was wonderful. the AC was the only like bad thing. We just, from what I understood, it like broke this week, and they just hadn't gotten it fixed. And
Yeah.
that happens. It's one of those things.
Like one of the things I do for event preparation, right, is I always take like these wipes I can use on my face to cleanse afterwards, because you leave with like a film of greasy nerd on your face after these events.
Yeah.
Without AC, I can't imagine what it must have felt like. Jesus.
I'm not the smallest individual in the world, and it was pretty awful. So,
Okay, my favorite detail though is DeCreasy wears glasses.
oh yeah,
I remember talking to him at certain points. His glasses are completely fogged up.
yeah.
That's like how like humid it wasn't there.
It was.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I just like I would have to clean my glasses and try to get the fog off every now and then, and I'd be like in the middle of a game. I have to like put my glasses down and like look over.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I was talking like some windshield wipers for our glasses. Like push a button and it just like cleans them off. Kind of a thing.
You need a time extension for glasses cleaning over here, please.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, what about you, Sonny? You took Han Green pilot to do this event in a world of Kira. You continue to play.
This was not this was not the same Han Green that you might have been seeing floating around previously. It was the Han Green data vault. That was kind of like an experiment from my side to see if he can operate the deck with the same game plan with 10 extra cards and keep the ratios a bit the same, but make sure that you have space for additional cards. So I ran a Plo Koon, which normally I didn't run in the 50 card version, and then theory around that was it's good into one-shotting Ray, it's good into one-shotting Han 2, which are big risers, and then pretty good into the mirror, hitting the Han leader. That's always been a problem when you're facing against Quinnland, so why not in Han itself, right? But the event, I really liked it. It was the staff was great, the venue was great, the heating situation, as you mentioned, not the greatest, but my tournament experience was still pretty good. And just like Joshua, I considered this PQ as the PQ I was defending because I had won the last Virginia PQ, right? So this was the one after that. Didn't quite get to the same result as Joshua, but I did get to the top 8, so pretty good.
It was the AC. Don't worry about it, bud. It was the AC.
Our team is
actually... my top cut match
AC
was...
diff.
Yeah, we were all...
My top cut match was like 2 hours long and an untimed top cut, so yeah.
2 hours!
So we were all done. Actually, we all weren't done. Sonny was playing against Duncan on Bosk Blue. And here's like part of the funny part about that. Neither one of them need that win. They're just like, we want to play this for fun. Like, we are here to compete. Like, they got paired against each other. And so they were like, they were the Kira Ray, their game 1, I think, took like 45 minutes from what I understand.
Yeah.
And their match was over before Han Green Data Vault versus Bosk Blue was.
Not gonna lie, that's against Kira. It takes 1 second, concede immediately, and go to game 2.
Oh, that is true. That is true. So it's funny. The game 1, we finished our game 1 before they finished our game 1, and we finished game 2 like right after they finished game 1. But still, they were able to finish game 3 before we finished. Game 2 and 3 before we finished our game 3.
I was done like 45 minutes before like my next match. I played against Han 2 Data Vault, and I was like done. I like walked over to see where they were, and I was like, "Oh, what game is this?" And they're like, "Game 2," and they're like just starting it. And I'm like, "I'm just gonna go camp out somewhere because this is not ending anytime soon."
Oh, so you guys were all at the same PQ?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. This was our home PQ for Team Sekrit.
It was like an hour, 2 hours away.
Like 2 hours.
Yeah, it was about 2 hours away, and 7 of us were there. So that top cut match, actually, I wanted to do my shout out is to Duncan, another Team Sekrit member, who beat me in top 8, right? And then he got to top 4. But just like you mentioned, neither myself nor Duncan, or Andrew for that matter, needed our PQ win. We were kind of playing for the same glory that you played for. Yeah, Sarah.
Good glory that.
Well, the prize was pretty good. I mean, first
The
place
glory
got
only results, isn't it?
first place prize
Yeah.
first place prize was a carbonite box. That was
Oh damn.
yeah, and
That's pretty
then
good.
I forget I got 3 packs of carbonite for top 4, and I got a showcase out of mine, so I was like, that's pretty dope.
I wasn't given any carbonite. Might need to come over there.
Really? Oh yeah, there a lot of we have several PQs that are giving out like a lot of carbonite. I think isn't West Virginia's like ludicrous pricing. It's like a case, or not? It's not a case. It's like multiple boxes of carbonite for just
Yeah,
winning.
I think so.
For winning, I
And
think.
they might
you
even
get-
I'm defending my title.
yeah,
Yes,
I think
that's the one that you're defending.
I'd have to
Yeah.
check, but we have one that they're like giving away. Like if you top 4, you get a box of carbonite and boxes of the regular boxes.
I mean, the
and-
regular boxes. There's nothing in them.
Yeah, I mean we've been giving them out as prizing. As like we put bounties on our heads this weekend, and if we lost, we gave away a pack to them. And then if they were if our
cool.
opponent at the end, if they were subscribed to our YouTube channel, which everybody, shameless plug, subscribe if you're not. I assume you all are. But if they were subscribed, we gave them another pack. If they weren't, we asked them to subscribe if they wanted a pack. And so I didn't
there
have
and watch
anyone.
him do it.
Yeah, you're just like, do you want this pack? Huh?
Look,
You want it?
let's do it.
Yeah, better
make sure.
better subscribe. No.
Yeah.
So
And then
pretty cool.
in top 4 onwards, right? So the top cut was made of 5 of our testing group members, and the top 4 had 2 secret team members on opposite sides. So it was Ryan DeCreasy, yourself. Big shout out to you for getting that far, and then Duncan on the other side. So when their opponents won against them in top 4, we gave some of the regional prizes as a bounty. So those like lanyards and deck boxes, sleeves that we got from Leal, Yehosera. Yeah, that's what I ended up giving as the bounty.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Bobby Sapphire's in the chat. You just went ahead and respond to him. I was gonna say he went ahead and was asking if you were gonna do the Metafy post for this. I know you did one for.
Oh yeah.
What was it? It was Han Blue in the past. I've seen that you've done them.
Well, I did the Anakin one that I did for the sector qualifier
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you did.
at Liverpool, and that one popped off quite a bit actually. But yeah, the Ray one I was gonna do, but I realized I'm likely to play Ray for the regional, a store showdown, and a PQ, and I was like, I mean, I might as well wait until I've done all of them and then do a write up for the whole thing, as
Right.
opposed to doing a regional one and then like 2 weeks later, here's another article about Ray.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if anybody doesn't have Joshua's or Yehosera's Metafy, I strongly suggest going ahead and checking it out. It's absolutely wonderful. If you can post the link in there in the chat, that would be perfect.
Oh, I will.
Definitely.
I love plugging myself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great content. It's absolutely wonderful. If you like reading different ideas and strategies, it's absolutely wonderful. So I cannot recommend it enough. If you should go read it, if you want to be competitive or even just want more knowledge, do better. You're going to do better by reading it. I suggest it.
And Joshua, you recently started a few more seminars and other content, didn't you? Do you want to plug those or talk about what you're doing?
I'm thankful for the opportunity. So basically, I've been trying a seminar type thing, and one fired on last Friday, and it was very good. It's basically, the seminars are where people join, and basically I spend about an hour going through the deck. So this time it was Ray. And so I basically talked about why I ended up on Ray, the choices on every single card, and why every card is at the number it's at, the cards I felt were flex slots. And then after each sort of portion, it's opened up and everyone can say, so for instance, the events, they can say, so I've been playing less takedowns, or I've been playing vigilances, why aren't you playing these? Then we have a little discussion about the card choices that I've made and why I've made them, and then why they think that the card choices they've made are good, etc., etc. And it's just a really good way to engage in open sort of forum discussion with people who are interested in the deck at the time. And so for that one, it was Ray. This Friday, it's going to be a mix-up between Kira Data Vault and Han 2 ECL.
Cool.
And going forward, it's just going to keep being the decks that I enjoy playing and people want to learn about, really, for those. And then other than that, there's also streams on Discord where I basically do Q&A because ultimately I've got too many questions. I can't answer all of them in depth enough. So I like being able to talk. Because in case you haven't noticed, I really like talking. So, you know.
No, absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, doing live seminars and just talking about the decks is super fun. I definitely relate with doing the live audience because I love being able to talk to people through, our podcast. We're having a discussion and then talking to people who have questions in the chat and bringing them in. It's really fun and I really enjoy it. So I definitely agree with you that feels like the way to go.
Yeah, it's more engaging,
Absolutely. All right, and so we've talked about our weekend. The meta is kind of, they kind of are what they are. We've seen them. I'm gonna pull up from the swoometa.net. This is kind of been browsing or being passed around today. This website, and I'll go ahead and also post it in whatchamacallit in the chat here. But these are the statistics for the winning archetypes as well as the winning leaders. And I thought these were kind of interesting because Sabine is one of the higher winning leaders, but she's been around forever, right? But Ray is the new kid on the block over the past couple of weeks and has as many wins. And I'm curious, why do you guys think that is? Is it because it's new and people haven't figured out how to play against it? Is it just that powerful and people need to start switching over to it? Or what are your talks? Well, I assume Joshua's my deck's
It's
fucking
because of this man on the call
know,
right here.
I just think that whoever it was that made this Ray Data Vault deck is just a really handsome individual.
Oh, so it's vanity that made it good. It's not the deck's good. It's just because whoever made it is so outrageously handsome that's what made it good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm glad you get it.
Okay.
It's good to speak to someone who gets it.
So, all right. So I'm gonna make a US UK beef right here. You're saying that Ophir, aka Wu, because he advocates for Kira and it's not as good, is not as handsome as you.
I'm saying whoever it was that made Ray popular must have been a handsome individual. That's all I'm saying. All
right, Ophir, we got somebody's got it coming out for you, huh? Somebody's calling you out there. No, but in all seriousness, I think this deck is really good. I think in terms of what it's doing, I really enjoy. I hate the character Ray. I hate the character, but I like what the deck is doing. If that character was replaced by anything else, that deck I'd probably be playing it all the time.
Imagine if it was Luke Skywalker instead of Ray. Oh my days, what a deck!
Oh yeah, sign me up. That would be sick. Or even Obi-Wan. Sign me up for that.
Oh yeah, Obi, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, I love the recursion. I mean, I love Mon Mothma as a card. And
yeah, we're gonna talk about Mon Mothma for 20 minutes now.
Dude, I love Mon Mothma. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of that card. Going Mon Mothma, bounce Bright Hope, draw a card, play your mom again. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think you have the right people here for that. I'm a huge Mon Mothma fan since that one.
Yeah,
I'm surrounded by hero players on this call. I need some more villain players to back me up here.
I've played way more villain than I have heroism, to be fair.
Yeah, I played villain half the time, or maybe 40% of the time.
Boba, Vader 1, Kira. I've played a lot of it. But
I played villainy until they banned my deck, and then back to heroism for me.
Yep.
Speaking of it, this is a little side talk. There are some people that think that should be unbanned.
Boba.
Yeah.
The people that make this game.
Please
every chance they get, they mention that.
Please don't.
Set 2 Boba would clear these set 4 decks easily.
Yep.
With no new cards.
Please don't. We do. I mean, now I can play Data Vault. It just gets to go to 10. I can just play 3s of everything. Oh, it was already trimming.
64 card deck. Let's go.
We don't need this back. Yeah, we don't need Boba's armor back on Boba, Barrage on 5, or we don't need any
Absolute
of
joke,
this.
man. The armor was the illest thing. I saw that and I thought, all right, well, they didn't even try.
We don't need this.
Yeah, a funny story about Boba's armor, right? At Denver, and I hope I'm not calling the player out, but he's a good friend of ours. Reflex was playing Django in uh, Denver, the sector where Django was still at its peak, right, in pre-suspension, and it showed you the power of Boba's armor when he took a loss 2 games straight to Boba's armor. In the new villain Boba was playing it, and even Django at peak power couldn't handle that because he couldn't exhaust the unit. Yeah,
Like, and we think we need that back. No, it does not need to come back. Like,
God.
I know Boba's armor is not banned, but we do not need to be having 7 resources worth of power. Like, I'm already concerned about Qui-Gon Jinn. That card is pretty wild with what it's going to be. Depending on how we can generate the Force, how much of it we're going to have, getting X turn plus X minus 1, where like you get your unit and you get that unit's cost -1. Then whatever enter the battlefield effects and ambushing effects and everything, which yellow already has a ton of ambushing effects, getting those cards in that color scheme is sort of terrifying when we can do that every turn almost.
I don't even understand why it was made in yellow, man.
yeah.
It could have been. Well, it couldn't be green, but it could have been red. Could have been blue.
Yeah.
Could have been heroism to go with the new Boba at the time. The new Boba instead, just yeah.
Yeah, it's a card that exists, and hopefully it never comes back, and hopefully they never. I don't say never, but I hope that they do not unban Boba Set 1 anytime soon. That can stay right where he is.
And okay, so going back to this the meta game, right, and the original question of that you asked Yeho, right, about Ray's performance these last few weeks. My take is the deck is extremely strong and also brand new. It's only 2 weeks old, right? Since I think, yeah, today is the 19th of May, and then you played it May the 4th weekend, right, Joshua? So, yeah, barely over 2 weeks old. So with the deck that just appeared out of the blue of that power level that wasn't accounted for beforehand, right? People just didn't tech for it yet, right? In these last 2 weeks, and you can clearly see that in its performance, not only from making top cuts, but the conversion rate from top cut to winner. So I think in this post that you're looking at, 18 made top 8 in the last few weeks, and 8 of those 18 were winners of the PQ itself or event. Right?
I would first of all like to thank you for being on it, because I completely forgot what the question I asked was being asked was when we went off on the Boba's armor side talk. So I'm glad that you're in it. Well, I mean, the thing about Rey is its weaknesses are the Vader Cunning, which isn't. It's not a very stable deck. It's strong, but it's not stable. It's definitely got bad matchups, and even its good matchups, that catastrophes can happen. Like, it's not all round solid. When it high rolls, it's unbeatable. When it doesn't, it's like it's a fine deck. The other deck that it's weak to is the obviously the Palp Cunning, that one Palp Cunning, but to take that into any tournament is asking to queue into every Sabine in the room. So you pray you're not going to meet that, but you might. And then the other thing it's weak to is sort of the Anakin hand to Data Vault type decks. Hand to ECL as well isn't. You're not happy to see it. Is those, and those are on the uptick right now. And those decks are the ones that you should be most scared of going forward, because they're bad matchups for you. They're gaining popularity. They're also kind of good across the field. So that's sort of where I see Rey spiking right now, is because the people are shifting towards these decks, but they're not all there yet. And the current decks that are being played, there's not too much they can do against Ray. Like Sabine ECL. I mean, I know I lost in Lille to Sabine ECL, but that matchup is so favored for Ray. Like so much has to go right for Sabine to beat it. And like Quinnland, for example. I mean, I guess Quinlan's sort of really fallen out of popularity, but it was popular before. But that deck's like basically not ever able to beat Ray. There's just a lot of decks that struggle to deal the 33. But now people are shifting towards. So I'd say that the percent is high right now in the conversion, but you're gonna start to see that dipping. I don't think Ray can
I agree there.
hold its position.
I think we like we said, it was 2 weeks in, and then the meta shifting. We'll see the responses in upcoming PQs and regional.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting next month and a half to see where things shift, because if we saw it happen in the past several seasons where Boba dominated set 1 or season. I'm going to use season 1, 2, and 3. Season 1 of the PQs, Boba dominated. Season 2, at first Han dominated. Then we saw that shift into like Django was really popular, and then Han came back, and then you had Han Green existing in the time as well. And at least in our area, Han Green was pretty popular. But you had like those two fighting for control, and then lurking was like Kira, and now we had Kira, Sabine, and Quinnland. Now Quinlan's fallen out of favor, and Ray's now taken that spot as that. And Han was up there, but I think a lot of players are falling off of Han in favor of playing, I don't want to say a simpler deck, but a different type of deck. They don't want to play that pilot strategy because it can be disrupted and everybody's teching for it. But if you don't respect it, you just lose to it. So it's really interesting where the meta is going to shift in the next month or so.
Yeah, and we had a question in the chat from Space Cowboy, right? Why would Quinnland never be able to beat Ray? And I kind of want to get your input from this, Andrew, because you played Quinnland for a long time and from the start of JTL, right? Do you think it truly can never beat Ray, or what's your take?
I mean, I guess it's hard. On one hand, it's hard to answer that directly because, like, you know, in that period leading up to Beatle, like Ray wasn't. I mean, I guess Ray Targettown was there a teeny bit, but like, I don't think anybody was really playing Ray Data Vault at the time, or even like Ray Green, really. I know like Sip was like messing around with like a build for fun with her, but you know, I did test a lot against Luke Data Vault, which is like, I know it's not the same as Ray, but there's a lot of similarities, a lot of same cards. They're kind of have a similar-ish game plan. And I felt like it was definitely winnable. It was at least 50-50, maybe slightly favored for Quinnland. I mean, there were things you needed to kind of like sequence around, like you couldn't just get like kind of blocked off by Sentinels. You needed to like, I think having Poe in that matchup actually was really useful. So that was kind of like when Django was still around. People were running Poe for Django, but like he kind of helped a lot of other matchups as well. Like sequencing around Poe for a lot of these hero decks, like if they use their resources and you just kind of slam him, they kind of have to claim, deal with him immediately, otherwise you can just like kind of wreck their board. The hand hate, I think, can like push some of those slower decks kind of off their spot. Like if they have like a really good curve out, you could potentially like brick their turn. Early force throw, you know, can also be really good. Quinnland can kind of like deal with the units. So I think there's definitely, it's like a skill matchup, but I think Quinnland can definitely like, you know, win it. Michael, I think he said he felt like okay into kind of Luke. So that's kind of the closest thing that I would say.
Yeah, here's my kind of response to on the Quinnland side, right? So I think Quinnland's it has some inherently strong things it does with force throw and pings, right? But the way that you build most Quinnland decks, it seems like you are building in response to a specific meta deck at the time, right? So in the Django
it's very reactive.
Yeah, it's very reactive. So pre Django suspension, the deck was built to combat Django with all the 1-drops, right? And then those the Guerrilla Soldier, all that kind of stuff, right? Try to outpace the damage and clock them at the 25. And then as Django was suspended banned, then had to account for how you're approaching the Sabine matchup. And they might have been similar, but they were two very different things in terms of individual card choices in each slot, right? So I think
Right.
the same thing is the case when you're building that to approach Data Vault now, in general, and maybe specifically the Heavy Restorer Sentinel kind of package that Ray presents. So it's not that Quinnland can't beat Ray. I think that Quinnland has to be teched to beat whichever is presented to it at a given field, right? And
Right.
that's maybe it's a strength of Quinnland and also a weakness.
If I can wind back to what was said before about Quinnland versus Luke Data Vault.
Yeah.
The Luke Data Vault decks are what inspired me to play Ray, because I was looking at what they were doing and I thought this is powerful stuff. But the leader's just not there. The shield's not like relevant. And that's why I took Ray, because I thought Ray is the best to beat Quinnland and Sabine. Well, I mean, when you look at all of the possible combinations for a defensive deck, Ray is the most defensive that you can take for
Yes.
leaders.
Sure.
I think in the Blue Heroism kind of package,
But,
the most.
Yeah. So that's why I ended up on it, because I felt they had very good matchups into Quinnland and Sabine in the first place.
In
When you-
classic Michael quote, he said that's his best matchup. He wins 40% of the time.
Well, that's not even that untrue for Quinnland. I think Quinnland doesn't. Quinnland's one of those weird ones, because Quinnland's a very, very strong deck. It's an absolutely it's a powerhouse of a deck. But the issue is that these regionals and stuff are 13 rounds of Swiss, and all of Quinnland's matchups are like weighted coin flips. Very few like 80 20s, 90 10s. They're all like sort of 65 35, 60 40s, 55 45s. That's the issue with it. It can't reach the 13 rounds of Swiss because it's like, you're going to lose some of those coin flips eventually.
Or you can just high roll and play all of the Gar Saxons in the state of Virginia and exterminate them from any hope of playing in the tournament.
Are there many of those?
He's making a joke, because this is what our teammate did in Richmond.
Yeah, he played like 4 of them. 3 or 4.
Oh, he got him.
Yeah.
Hunted him down.
He did. His matchup history was pretty funny. But I should say this. With the rise of Ray and Quinnland still existing and everything else, do you expect Ray to become the dominant deck and take over the meta? Like, to be right now, I think the deck, when I think of the deck that everybody's targeting, the two I think are Kira, Sabine. Is this going to take the place of one of those, and now this is the targeted deck, or do you think those?
I think what actually it is right now, when I build decks, I build to beat Sabine / like Aggro, but I use Sabine as the benchmark for an aggressive deck.
Sure.
And blue villainy control decks. Those are the two opposites that I try and beat. But I think you need to start bringing blue heroism into the conversation more. And maybe you're not trying to beat Ray, but maybe you're going, I need to come up with a plan for these Luke Skywalker decks. And that's more sort of what the conversation should be with regards to managing Ray. Something you need to manage like Ray Data Vault specifically, but Luke Skywalker decks need to be given a bit more respect than they were before.
Yeah, so it's more like a new archetype or category of blue heroism.
Yes, exactly.
It's now prevalent in the meta.
Because I mean, it's not just Ray; it's like Anakin as well. There are other blue heroism decks that are, they're doing the numbers.
So there's an interesting question that Grassroots Gaming went ahead and posted. They're asking, do you think that mid-range and control decks are kind of maxed out in power level to combat emerging aggro decks such as Vader 4 and Han 2 ECL?
I don't know, man. Vader 4 is like, if you have Traitorous, that deck's dead. If they don't draw their the 3-mana capture card, they're dead. Like, Vader 4's like, you don't need power to beat Vader 4. You just need Vader 4 to miss. So
Yeah, so my take on Vader 4 is that deck is extremely powerful, but
It's close.
very snowbally, right? So it's there's a point in which maybe between turn 2, turn 3, that if they are disrupted, they kind of lose. If
Yes.
they are not, they snowball to victory a lot of times. And then
Yep.
even after that, as you mentioned, Joshua, if you traitorous a victor leader, right, it can cap the amount that they're hitting you for, right, and it gives you some time, right.
Exactly.
So that disruption definitely can stop that deck, but
I kind of feel like it's a little more of a resilient aggro deck, though. I feel like it can get disrupted, and then it can get the token train going again and kind of cover a little better.
Good strategy to rebuild board states, I would say, right? Especially like against the blue villain decks or boss control, like Super Laser Blast, right? Decks that are 1-for-1ing your I guess your most relevant threat at the time. Afterwards, if they can't continue to 1-for-1, or can't blow up your whole board with something like an OB, this deck is really resilient at rebuilding. I do agree. But yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, it's the time you get, because your leader flips on 6, not 5. The decks that give you that extra turn of time, you're able to get the leader. You know, it gives you more ties. You get a little something going for you. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But the decks that shut the door, the decks that just shut the door immediately, like.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that it can, like you said, snowball the game, and I think that it can be disrupted. But I think it does have, like, if you're piloting it and you're playing with these things happening in mind, like it seems like it does have the potential to not just get blown out. And I think there are some ideas that can really go ahead and change the way that deck plays. Um, I think that it's gonna be interesting to see where that deck develops. I think it's very close. I just don't know that it's been fleshed out yet exactly what it needs to make it more consistent. But I think it's way closer than um, a lot of people give it credit for. Like, I do think it can be disrupted, but I don't think it's far off.
I'd be
Yeah,
interested.
and part of
oh, sorry, go on.
I was gonna say part of Grassroots' other question was Hantu ECL, right? And those decks can be pretty similar, but they're also very different, right? So Hantu ECL can also go wide with Maz Kanata and drops
flexible.
that are it's very flexible under curve, and it gives you the ability to play those under curve cards along with cards that are over curve, right? But they're still very different in terms of like the arenas that they're going wide in, the aspects of the game that they want to snowball in, right? So Maz Kanata, for example, is like it's requiring you to play a lot of units and then build a tall unit there. This one with Vader 4, you build a lot of units to build a tall unit at resource 6, probably, right, on the Vader flip. But what are your guys' takes on Hantu ECL in this question?
I'd just like to. I'd like to cycle back to the Vader 4 after this.
Yeah.
I'm interested about the rebuild plan. But when it comes to Hantu ECL, there's like a lot of different builds. Like I've messed around with it quite a bit. I've got like a Stila Guerrera build. I've got a sort of Maz Kanata build. I've got a sort of middle between the two. Like there's lots of things you can do with it. It's a very flexible archetype.
Yeah.
It's an aggro deck in the sense that it tries to close the game with its ECL activation. And I don't feel like decks are maxed out in power against an ECL on Poe Dameron. Because like that is it's so defining when that happens, because it comes down and it's like, right, do you have the answer immediately? If not, you've been snowballed and it's over. So I wouldn't say that mid-range and control are maxed out in power level to combat Hand 2 ECL. I think that Hand 2 ECL is actually pretty good into mid-range and control, because it gets to wear the hat of a mid-range deck while still playing the aggro cards. So yeah, I would say that it's not they're not maxed out in power against it.
Yeah, I think the one thing I want to say regarding his question, that this is not addressing those two decks specifically, but something I've encountered like with deck building and in set 5 or set 4, sorry, is trying to build your deck to address like cross arena stuff, right? So there ended up not being a ton of like heavy space decks that we like thought maybe there would be, but like Vader 4 is an example of a very just they're like all space, right? So if you have like no space interaction or very little space interaction, right, you can just draw that deck in a tournament and you could struggle with it, right? So I think even though we don't have like a ton of like all space decks, we do have like a much like varied meta compared to like before the suspensions. So I think that's something that is some decks can struggle with the card choices, because it's very hard to say like, oh, I'm gonna have be favorable to everything, which you can't even really do, and that's going to be harder and harder as the game goes on, to like figure out your card choices and be proactive enough and have some answers and striking that balance. Like for Kira ACL, I ran into this issue where I had to like mess with some of the space versus ground units and add a couple more space units and try to figure out the balance there to feel like I can have like game 1 odds into like everything. And that's kind of harder. And I think set 5 with like rebalancing the ground, that's going to change it a lot. So it's fun, but I think it is like it's a good problem, and it'll keep the game kind of balanced.
I agree completely. I think that you're completely right. This whole combating 2 arenas thing is like that kind of helps define how good your mid-range deck is going to be, and it's hard for decks to combat both arenas.
Yeah,
You're kind
I
of at the
think
mercy of your draws sometimes, because like against Sabine, imagine you draw a ground unit and then they go space. You're like, oh man. But having
Right.
that sort of ability to go between both that's the real hard part.
Yeah, and like having enough proactive stuff in the deck, I think that's like one thing with every deck has a choice, right? Like how much top end do you have, or how much like tech cards or whatever. And I think it can be a trap to be like, well, I want to play like all the tech cards or all the interaction or all the too much top end if you feel like you're going to face all mirrors, because you got to think about there's still like Sabine, right? There's still like the mainstay deck. So you're like, well, I have to figure out what I'm going to do for them. So yeah, I think it's good for like the game, but yeah, it's definitely going to be more challenging as we go forward. I think to just build decks that are like competitive into like a larger field, especially for these large events like the sectors and the regionals.
I'll tell you a cheat code if you're stuck for card choices. There's a base that lets you play 60 instead of 50.
There you go. That's the best base in the game.
I don't think you read that card correctly, because in the UK I think it says 62. It doesn't say 60.
It actually just says you can play your normal deck size, but you get 3 more health. I'm like, whoa, hang on.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
Pure
Jordan,
upside.
I think Jordan had a question, Brian, to Gracie. Do you want to?
So Sauce, aka Jordan, was asking if I think that Kira is still favored into Ray, and how do you feel about that, Joshua? We kind of talked about it a little bit, but
And before you answer this, I wanted to preface. I don't know if they missed the shout out at the beginning, but you did shout out Sauce for winning the PQ with Raid out of Vault.
I did,
and he ran into this matchup against the person on this call that just shouted him out, right? You playing the Kira Tide.
And I made a number of mistakes in that matchup. I went ahead and
You being
watched it back.
You're being baited right now?
He's always trying to bait. He's a notorious baiter. He knows what he does.
A master of baiting.
Oh yeah, he is. But I looked at that, and I definitely rewatched the VOD, and there were some mistakes, and by some I mean quite a few mistakes in that matchup that I made, and it happens, and I just learn from it. But I'm curious on your opinion, because I know we talked about it a little bit in terms of differences.
I feel like we highlighted the key part. There's a window around the time when the Sith get deployed, and that's where you can really push the advantage. But if Rey can weather that storm, then I think that Rey just wins in the late. I don't think Kira can do anything in the late game to Rey at all. And in the early game, I feel like Ray is relatively favored because your units are just like better because they have the EXP. They just have more health. They're better at trading. So it's really around that sort of flip Ray. So not flip Ray, sorry. Flip Kira. Try and clean up the board best you can. Get a nice board for Vader to come down and capitalize on. If you can do that, you're in a good spot. But if, as Ray, you can prevent that from happening, they'll never mill you and they'll never kill you. So I feel like inevitability is on Ray's side, and it's on Kira to do something around mana turn 5 to 7.
Now, do you feel that changes with ECL versus Data Vault? Do you feel like ECL is a better matchup into Ray, or do you feel that it doesn't matter?
What would you ECL? Like Gideon Hask?
All right, I'm gonna go last. You guys all go.
Well, so the reason I asked that is because we have a devout Kira ECL player in this call in the name of Andrew right above us. So I was curious how if you.
I just don't know what you would ECL. Like, there's Gideon Hask is strong. There's the 3-5 ship.
Lompike?
The one that like the 3-5 ship.
No, I'm saying that's another one. You're talking about the gunship. Devastating gunship. But I'm giving another one. Lompike's a pretty common one to ECL in.
Well, I mean, you can ECL that, I guess. It's no more impactful than another 4-attack unit that's being ECL'd. Unless if the Kira player has a dead spaceship, but we don't play any units in that arena. So, I mean, I think ECL is more favored than Data Vault, because actually being able to snowball with a Hask is a problem that you have to pivot from your game plan to manage. Also, the gunship being able to ECL. I mean, there's nothing it should ECL, actually, but I think the Hask is... It's another tax on your Fel the Dragons, of which there are only 3 in like game 1, and then like game 2, there's rivals, but I'm not gonna rivals a Gideon Hask, like it's asking to lose. And I put in direct hit, but that doesn't hit Gideon. So like he actually has some potential in the matchup to swing it. So I think ECL is better than Data Vault against Ray.
Yeah, I mean I can see that. I'm in the camp of I think Ray, like we talked about it with that window. I think that window when you ramp, now obviously you are playing more cards and that can just not happen sometimes, and that window can be pretty hard. But I'm not a fan of the mill plan. I think that plan is bad. I don't think it does anything.
100%. It's unplayable. It's unplayable.
But I see it way too often in that matchup. I've seen it happen where they're trying to like mill you and you play your own restocks, and it's just like it's just not enough. Like they're going to kill you long before you ever just mill them. And I think in my matchup, I think Jordan was planning on me milling him, and he went up to 66 cards in the matchup. Like, what world am I gonna? Is 18 cards gonna like be the difference?
Yeah, you're never gonna be able to mill that.
Exactly. And so I just think that you have a better chance controlling the board with your Vader's Mauls, and like I dealt with 3 home ones, 6 Lukes, 2 techs, and 1 choose sides, and I lapsed and forgot about the second choose sides, and I just died. And that like I didn't have an answer for the Devastator he took from me, and I should have attacked with it, and I didn't, and I just like completely threw the game there. And then the 1 through 5, like in game 1 for me, my 1 through 5 resourcing decisions and my choices there, I made the wrong decisions, and it ended up costing me the game. And then I was forced into playing extremely defensive, and you just can't play defensive against Ray Data Vault. Like the second you do, where you're like, I need to get to Super Laser Blast and hope that I can like rebuild, they're rebuilding the turn that you Super Laser Blast. They're just like, they're holding on to the time or the Ewing reinforcements, and in some cases timely reinforcements, and they're just like, yeah, you have to deal with this, all these idiot 3/6s or whatever they are on the ground, and I'm going to put just enough pressure that you feel like you need to Super Laser Blast, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you. And
but
then
the second you see the Super Laser Blast, it's like, well, now you've definitely lost.
Exactly. And then you're like, all right, cool, I'm going to play timely reinforcements, get back 3 more idiots, buff them up, and now you have to deal with this again. Like the board doesn't change.
That's why the Sith are good, because they give you ways to make units while killing units.
Absolutely.
As opposed to using events.
And I think that's the way that you need to go in that matchup. Because of that.
100%. If you turn up with 3 Maul, 3 Vader, 3 Dooku, I'm a little bit shook.
Yeah.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's the higher percentage win rate, and I think that that's the way you want to go. And if somebody's like trying to figure out that matchup, don't mill. It's like stop trying to mill the Ray Data Vault deck. It's just not.
Do that, and you have Gideon Hask. If you have that and Gideon Hask and ECL, they cannot fail all 12 of them.
Sure.
Yeah, true.
Maybe that's the sideboard tech. Maybe we just go ahead and play Timely Gideon Hask for the sideboard. Just like I've seen some Cura lists maining Timely already. You're just playing Gideon Hask in the sideboard, and you're like, this is my Cura, this is my Ray plan. Board him in and just Timely, throw it out there and force him.
So Andrew said he wanted to go last, but I'm gonna say we can skip me for this because we have enough input from you all from both sides. But one thing that I'll say is I definitely am leaning towards the ECL side of things for Kira versus this matchup, right? I think that's where you need to be putting pressure with a few of these units, even Long Pike or Fet's Fire Spray, Devastating Gunship, trying to 2-for-1 things. That's where. Yeah, Fet's Fire Spray.
Want some spice here, Joshua?
Yeah.
Yeah. We've been playing.
With that, I'll let Andrew explain his take on the scenario.
Yeah, so I've watched a ton of Cure Data Vault. Admittedly, I have not played a lot of Cure Data Vault. I've just always been an ECL, so I played 1 PQ in set 3 on Cure 30, and I just personally did not like the playstyle. And I mean that basically is the Data Vault playstyle, right? And it's fine. It's just it's more control-y, and you're trying to mill a lot of the games and stuff like that. And so yeah, I've just kind of always been ACL. I prefer the play style, but yeah, my stance, I feel into whether it's Luke and I haven't played the Ray Data Vault yet because it's so new, obviously. But I have played a ton of Ray, Red, and Luke's and Anakin's and stuff like that, and I feel like Villain is favored into all those decks, all the Villain green her hero blue green decks, at least the ECL version. It's not an auto win, but I do feel there's a lot of positions you can put them in that's difficult. I also think the Villain top end is just better. I think if the game goes long, I feel favored. Avenger and Palp's Return and Relentless is actually a card I think is, as these decks lean more into choose sides and stuff like that. I think Relentless is very, very difficult for hero blue green to deal with.
I'll say 100% you're going to get more windows to win the game with the ECL because you're actually opening yourself up in the crucial turns to do something impactful. Yeah. But the late game of Villainy is just shut down by Fell the Dragon and Direct Hit. It's so hard. It's I
guess the way that I feel those games go is it's I'll say Anakin just because Anakin up until recently has been probably the most popular, right? At least that's what I've seen in events.
Anakin also, I would never really consider myself unfavored into Kira.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's
interesting.
We can agree to disagree.
Yeah, that's
Anakin. I guess I just feel those matchups for me are they play, C-3PO, and I'm just all right, I'll ECL Long Pike, and then it's flip into Barrage, into Maul, into Vader, into Walker, into Avenger, into Devastator, into Relentless. And I don't see how they deal with that, as the game goes on.
Yeah, and against Anakin, the way I feel that goes is they have their leader, and you just kill it with Maul, and then the deck doesn't do anything.
If you've had good experiences into Anakin, then sure, I can't argue with your experiences. All I can say is that one of the reasons why I like blue heroism is because I feel it's so favored into blue villainy that I don't have to put too much respect on it in the main board. But if you're finding angles to go aggressive against them and getting the win, then that's good. That's great.
Yeah, I think the change is the mindset, right, or the approach. When you play blue, when you play blue villainy, right? Yeah, I mean, normally you expect that blue villainy to be kind of controlly, right? And that's not necessarily when you have tools like ECL and that curve that Andrew mentioned. You don't need to do that. So
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
It's on the blue heroism to try and disrupt it and live longer, and that's where the blue
Yes.
heroism wins. But the ECL is a big difference as opposed to not having ECL, because you're gaining more opportunities to swing the
For
game
sure.
and like
Oh yeah,
initiative
100%. I agree with that. Yeah, and I think, like I said,
opposed to
the data vault. I mean, their plan A is to mill, and milling in general, I think, is significantly worse now because of data vault, right? Um, Also, it's just, I mean, I don't think it's a very like consistent plan. I think it's very, very slow and like kind of low tempo. And so I think in that situation, like I could see Ray, being 50-50 into data vault, like because especially if they're trying to do that plan. I mean, I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah,
I think it's a bit
can
more than
see that.
50-50 if they're trying to mill. You
Oh yeah, no. But yes, if they're trying to mill, then I would say that you're favored.
I think
But
Ray is incredibly favored if they go with that game plan. Yep.
I guess I think like the way I would play Data Vault is very different. Like I played a lot of Kira mirrors, so like the way that I kind of try to pilot it is like very different than like most Kira players. That is their plan A. Like in every not every matchup, but every mid-range matchup, that seems to be like the plan A.
Yeah,
So
I agree with you, and I've had talks about it that the mill plan is it's just not like, I think that you have the tools to be proactive, and like you're just trying to mill somebody. I feel is like way too defensive, and you're just asking for some of these decks to just like kill you. So we could talk about this. I mean, this is an interesting topic, but I think we could talk about this all day. But we do need to move to
sure.
the next topic here, and it kind of
Oh,
does.
I've got all night. We can wind back.
It is the night for you.
I mean, so we also
It's what,
have to
one?
address this. We have to say this too, that there's like we're talking about theoretical matchups, but like we're not
Yeah.
factoring in pilots, right? So like, Joshua's Ray, like is saying Joshua on Ray is favored into like most Kira players. Like I'm not gonna debate that. I'm talking about like the shell, like the cards themselves, right? Because like piloting accounts for like a lot of this, right? Like a better pilot is going to have more points into the matchup and just be able to kind of outplay. So I'm not talking about like you as a pilot or like your build. I'm just talking about like the archetypes pitted against themselves in a vacuum.
Yeah, no, I completely get that.
Yeah.
I think it's that's why I was saying earlier that like I can't argue your lived experience of playing Kira, because if you're finding these angles more and more and you're getting the wins against it, then you're clearly doing something right in the matchup. And yeah,
I mean,
it's just
I've seen
all
your
the
game, so it's not surprising to me that you feel like you're favored in a blue villain. Like I've watched your games, but I think a lot of that is piloting, right? Like
yeah,
there's
it's
a lot of matchups. I'm
yeah.
sure that like a lot of these players that we know, can play really well in a matchup that maybe is not favored on paper, but they can figure out a way to win, right?
I can say that one of the most frequent questions I get about my Ray is how do you beat Kira? So
Yeah, I mean,
There you go.
and
Yeah.
that is something like that. That's really interesting because it plays in kind of something else we're going to talk about here, and it's playing like your style, right? So the next thing I want to talk about is when you're choosing a deck for a tournament or anything like that, knowing your own personal style and taking that as an advantage to play into games. And we're talking about how we Andrew mentioned it, and I've also talked about it, is like the way we play Kira isn't the conventional way that a lot of people play Kira. And I don't know if that's because they feel like I'm playing blue villainy, that I need to always be on the back foot and always play defensive, but going ahead and figuring out how your approach to a matchup could be a better way to approach a matchup and skews to your experience, like you said. And in a vacuum, if you're like, okay, two players of similar stat of quality playing against each other, if you're playing style A versus style B against the same deck, which one is better? That's incredibly difficult to quantify, because it doesn't. There's no stat tracker for that. It's just Kira Data Vault versus Ray or not Tarkentown, Ray Data Vault, and it's up to the person, the pilot. And I think that that's something that when a player chooses, they need to really understand what their style is, and it's really important.
Also, like when you're trying to argue, you can only draw on what you've sent.
Sure.
So, it's like it's harder to make an objective mid player on both sides type thing, if you know what I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Totally.
I agree.
I
I don't
think
think it's biased. I think it's just like that. It's an experience, right? Like, I guess maybe it is like maybe I'm just like
It's like I said,
terrible.
lived experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like you're saying that it's better. It's just like this is what my
Yeah, I
experience
mean,
has
we're also
taught me.
not gonna. We don't have to agree on everything either. I mean, it's just an
I
opinion,
think
right?
that it's
That's
good
how
to
you.
not agree. I think that actually brings thought about if you don't agree, then it's like, okay, then what perspective is this person playing in this matchup that I'm not thinking about, or what's happening that it is causing them to see such skewed results versus me and my experience.
It just
Because
means the
that's really
matchup's
interesting.
good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the format
Yeah.
is super healthy. It's probably the healthiest format we've
It
had.
means it's good.
Well, the
As
other
opposed
variable
to-
that
So
it
go on.
being not good. Good. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, Joshua.
No, I was just saying that it means it's just good because that means that, people are able to sit down and play the exact same 62 versus 60, matchups and have different outcomes. And that means it's good as opposed to sitting down and going, oh, I've queued into this, I'm dead.
Sure. Well, the other interesting variable here that we've discussed a bit, maybe we could talk about it here as well, is it even though like some of the matchup spreads are quite similar and like some of the leaders and such that are popular in the US are also popular in Europe, but like the meta seems quite different. Like just as a spectator, like you look at some of the card choices, you look at some of the what the top players are playing, you look at some of these, the way the decks interact, it feels a little bit different. It's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what that is, but that's another thing that's very interesting, I think. Just as like someone watching these streams, it seems like a little bit different based on the region.
I think as Sonny has played in both regions, he's the best position to answer this.
Yeah. I mean, so I was talking to some of you a little earlier, and my hot take was there's not that much difference actually between Europe and the US playing in both areas. I think that there's a lot of influence that week to week the US takes from EU takes from the US, right? So the most recent big example is Lille, but even post Lille, right? So Lille, I felt when I came to that tournament, I had this expectation that there would be a lot of Palpatine players, a lot of Piet players, right? Something like that, right? Coming to Europe. And that did not happen at all. It was, I believe, 15% Sabine, and then next highest was 10 or 12% Quinnland. And if you looked at the previous week's results in Richmond, the top two decks in the final table were Quinnland and Sabine. So I feel like they took a lot of influence from that, and then that definitely panned out to be the field in Lille. And then post Lille, now in the US, from Joshua's performance with this Ray deck that we discussed in detail, we've been seeing so many Rays in top cuts and winning here in the US, right? And not just Ray, but Data Vault, because the Data Vault deck that won Lille, even though it was a Sabine deck, had a lot of influence here in the US, right? I want to see if there's like a comparison that we can do when we get week to week stats between Europe and the US to see if there's really a meta difference or not.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, it would be cool because I think there is to some extent, but I would say it's not nearly as much as we would think, right?
To be honest, the only real thing that I notice is that Kira does a bit better across the pond. That's
Yeah,
about.
I think
the only
actually that
difference
is
that I
true.
see.
Maybe that's where the difference lies, right?
That's
In the
it.
approach, not the deck choices, but the approach and the success of a deck in a given tournament for the
Well,
regions.
Is that because we're not playing 2 Annihilators on our main board?
Yeah.
That's
Maybe.
because
I mean,
you're
I
not
don't know if
trying to
it's
beat the
easy.
swarm of Palpatine players, all right?
we do not have a swarm of Palpatine players, let me tell you.
Yeah.
All right. Right. Well, that's probably there. We go. We found the root cause.
That's kind of the joke. I feel like whenever like there's a big EU event, we're like, all right, how much Palpatine are we going to see? How much Boss? Because I feel
Joke,
like that's
right?
more
But-
popular over there.
You say it's a joke, but when you're there and you're looking across, as soon as you look at the X2, X3 tables, you're like, that's a lot of Palpatine.
Yeah, that's where they are, right?
Because they all got paired against the Sabine players, and like you see one
And
at the
then
high table, and you're like, "What are you doing here?" And they're like, "I didn't play
They're
against
not
Sabine
welcome
today."
You'll lose your first 2 rounds playing a soft control mid range deck, and you'll be like, here comes the Palps.
Yeah.
That's it.
You're put in that bracket. Yeah.
Oh jeez, that
Oh,
sounds
God.
that sounds like a miserable bracket to be in.
But Joshua, you've never been in that bracket, so how would you even know?
I was the Palpatine that didn't play any Sabines.
Oh, okay.
I was putting them in the mixer, getting them ready for the other Palpatines, you know?
Like you guys have
Serving
fun
up
down there.
serving up a fresh villainy deck for you here, guys.
You guys have
62
fun
Pal.
down in that Palpatine bracket.
I feel like, yeah, the only real difference that I see across the regions is the Kira top 8 conversion. I don't see much of it in Europe, but I see a lot of it in NA. But the play rates are pretty similar. There's a lot of them in EU. They're just not converting as much. But that's the
Got
only
it.
like discrepancy that I really see when I look at the numbers in EU and NA.
Yeah, and I mean even that I think is the case in the US too, right? So if you look at that that meta article that we pulled up earlier, right? The highest number of top 8 decks in the last 2 to 3 weeks, post Django ban, I guess more than 2 to 3 weeks, is Kira Data Vault. But only 5 of those have won. So I don't think that's EU specific. I think that's across the board.
But they're not making it deep enough in EU, or at least not the numbers.
You're not even making it to top cut, is what
Yeah.
you're saying in EU?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
There are a lot of them, but they're not like making it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
part of that
true.
is-
Actually, at Lille, I saw a ton of Kira Data Vaults, and
Yeah,
I don't
so
think the
like
top
Kira
8 has a
Data Vault-
single one, right?
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of them, and it's not
Yeah.
like there are bad players playing them. They just sort of end up bubbling, like, you know, a random. They'll queue into like a random peer, like yellow or something, who let sneak attack
Yeah.
invincible or not invincible.
I saw a lot of those mirrors, the Kira Data Vault mirrors, in
Yeah,
Lille.
I done as well was like not popular, but there were a few of them, but they just end up queuing into each other and stuff, and yeah, they just don't end up converting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
it's
say that's the
interesting.
only real difference I see across the regions.
Do you think there's a play like I assume you've watched a number of US tournaments. Do you think that it's an approach difference, or do you think it's literally just the Kira players just get a bad matchup and they're just not topping nearly as much?
I feel like it's a comfort thing.
Can you elaborate?
I feel like a lot.
What do you mean by that?
Whenever I speak to NA player, or a lot of NA players I speak to, they're like more comfortable with Kira, like the way that she plays, what she does, and the fact that she's able to be played in multiple different ways makes her sort of a more flexible leader, and it seems like you're more comfortable with that style to me. When I speak to EU players, it's more like, why would I ever play Kira when I can play Trench, bro? You know, like
Yo.
they'd rather
Yo.
go one end of the spectrum.
Oh,
You need to talk to this man here, DeCreasy.
Oh, you're speaking my language. Some
They'd
trench,
rather go-
trench
yeah.
blue. Woohoo!
I mean, even I fall victim to that. The way that I build my decks is that I go one end of the spectrum. So when I play the Ray, I build a control deck that is built entirely to be aggro and has a sideboard entirely to beat control. I go to
Right.
I want to be on on the end of a spectrum. I don't want to be in the middle. But it seems like I don't want to say something that's untrue, but it just feels like NA players are more happy being in the middle, or not even on the middle, but towards one side, but not completely.
Okay, interesting.
And playing a more
As opposed to like you feel like, you know, a lot of EU players would rather play like Sabine or Palpatine, like farther on the ends of the spectrum, or
yeah, like I feel like EU players would rather play a deck that only trades or a deck that only goes base, as opposed to a deck that
as opposed to
trades
mid
and then
range.
goes base, or a deck that
Interesting.
goes base and then trades. It's just
Huh. Okay.
when you're trying to plan for it, you're kind of like, well, why would I want to do both? I'm gonna pick one that does one, and it's
Gotcha.
gonna be good.
Okay. Interesting.
That's a super interesting like take, philosophy of like that. That's how it is, because that makes sense, because there were in set 1 when Krennic Blue was super popular. I hated that deck because it felt like a lot of the lists felt like they were trying to do two things and they were bad at both things, but they didn't have like a direction at what they were doing. And it felt like Krennic, what he wanted in set 1 was to be a proactive blue-green leader that had ramp effects, that played big things, and had removal spells to back it up. And it felt like
was trying to do
really
both.
weird. It felt like people were building it to do both. And I felt like the successful lists of it were when they picked, like, I'm going to be a blue-green ramp deck. And then they were just, like, playing
Devastator,
like,
relentless, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how the it feels more that the philosophy is over here, or at least the general vibe is that I would rather a deck that is so far on one end of the spectrum that's the only playstyle I need to do.
Interesting. That's cool. I never heard that put that way.
I kind of agree with that philosophy, like your experience of it, at least, right? Because, and your interpretation of it, because in the US, I do feel like people do what Ryan said. They take that approach of making their deck do a lot of different things and go a lot of different directions, right? Or maybe even just one more different direction than they should. But maybe that's a mentality thing. People just like to build complete decks rather than decks that are narrow. Here,
well, that's the edge that I have, because I go so far on one side.
Yeah,
I'm like, I am finally the deck that can only trade. That's how I feel with Ray. It's like I'm
right.
But yeah, that's kind of how I feel when it comes to that stuff. Whether that's true or not, that's just how I feel. Because there are obviously players like Sip, for example, his hand 2 deck.
Yeah.
It wasn't so far on the aggressive side that it only hits base. But at the same time, a lot of the choices were leaning more towards I'm rewarded for hitting base.
Right.
Sure.
Whereas the hand 2 Data Vault that's more popular now, it's more of a sort of more middle of the line, and that's not a very it's not a very don't want to say it's not a very EU play style, but it's kind of.
And you're referring to that Hantu Data Vault deck?
Yeah, like Hantu Data Vault, Anakin
Yeah.
Data Vault, the sort of
Right.
red-green heroism stuff that we see now is more middle of the line, as opposed to the Hantu ECL, which is more
aggro.
I'm going to make one really good trade, I'm going to hit your base.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is more sort of leaning towards an end of the spectrum.
That's pretty cool.
To me, those two decks are extremely different. I know they're playing like the same color, same leader, but they just feel like east and west in terms of decks, right?
Yeah,
and what they're
exactly.
trying to accomplish and do.
The scaling and the longevity is completely different, because the Han 2
Yeah.
ECL that Sip and Co are playing, they don't have any timely. They have very limited longevity. They don't scale very well.
Oh,
But the
right.
advantage they get in the early turns is so high that they're allowed to scale for a few turns past where you would expect them to run out of steam. Whereas the Data Vault decks are playing timelies and stuff, so that they don't get the advantage early, but they have more gas to keep them going in the late. It's like a different sort of approach.
Yeah, that's kind of how you guys are describing the Han 2 ECL versus Han 2 Data Vault. That's how I feel about like Kira ECL versus Kira Data Vault. Like it's like
Yeah,
you look at the cards and you're like, okay, this is like the same deck. But like watching the matches play out, like it just feels very, very different. It's almost like it's a different deck in some ways.
Yeah, it's really an interesting thing, and I'll have to when I watch more EU tournaments from now until, um, well, just going forward. That's something I'm gonna be thinking about. It's just like, what is this deck doing? What's its, is where on the spectrum is it? And then look at like the US tournaments and compare the two. I think it's gonna be pretty interesting. And then it's gonna be more interesting when we get to in July, these two clash, and it's like, what is gonna happen? We've got this like, I don't want to say they are two different philosophies, but they seemingly are two different seeming styles. And when they come into a meta that nobody, as far as I understand, it's going to be the first event period with the new set. I think it's what, 2 weeks out from
Yeah,
set release.
it should be the first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's going to be really cool. One of the things that Magic did, and I don't know if any other card game did, they did their Pro Tours for a period of time. The new set would release the weekend of the Pro Tour. So the Pro Tour was the event that new cards were played in, and people based, like you saw, new decks, new ideas, and teams doing all kinds of things like that. So it's going to be really interesting to see what everybody kind of, wraps up.
Well, the forbidden game, which isn't allowed on stream, we have it where our worlds is always the first tournament possible of the new set as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's very nice because when it's an established format, you're not that excited for Worlds. Like, imagine if Worlds was the end of this format and you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna watch Kira Data Vault versus Sabine again. Like, it's not exciting.
For the 1,000th time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
But if
whilst
it's the first event where you see Ray Data Vault, right? Then you're like, oh, this is so exciting.
Hold up, we're cooking. But yeah, the idea is that it's not for the players. It's not as good because you'd rather be playing your refined Sabine deck versus a refined Kira deck. But in terms of like spectating and just the event being hype, you'd just rather have new decks, innit?
100%, and that's the same thing with like metas, right? When you have an incredibly diverse meta playing, there's so many things you either you plan for everything or you plan for a small amount of things. But when there's like a top dog, like when Django was there, every deck was, you were either Django or you were like heavily teched for Django, and that was like, I want to say in some sense it was easier to play in that meta because every other round, or maybe even multiple rounds back to back, you were playing Django.
Let's say it was simpler. I don't know if easier was.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Simpler, easier to plan for, because everything in a tournament you are going to play Django probably 3 times.
Your main deck to beat Django, and you have 10 cards to play a normal deck in your sideboard.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So I'm also in the same camp. I like that. I want the game to be more, because the game's only going to grow if people are interested, and the best way to get it to make the game more interesting is to do this. I'm 100% for it, because I'm doing content and all these things, and we all are. It's enjoyable to do these things and travel, and we want as many eyes on this and as much future proofing of it as we can get. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
for
and
it.
something that came up in the chat, right? Australia's meta as well, right? So definitely there could be even different play styles between
That's my
non-EU, non-NA. Recently, we've seen some of the first PQs in Asia, right? And those have just been really, really different. They've been smaller for sure, but very, very different. And I wonder if any of those PQ winners will come to Galactics.
The game's been released in Asia? I didn't even know that.
I also
yeah,
didn't know
we
it
had
was
our
in
first
Asia.
set of
I didn't see
PQs
that.
in Asia. There was one in China this weekend.
That's crazy.
Oh,
I saw Australia. I didn't see China. That's awesome that we are doing that, because I know Flesh and Blood didn't hit Asia until like the last couple of years. I want to say maybe 2-ish years, maybe a little more, maybe a little less than that. And granted, Star Wars is a much bigger IP and has a much broader audience, so maybe that has something to do with it. But that's awesome.
It's
if
a
it's
bigger IP. It's a bigger IP, but out further east, the cost to buy out the IP is lower. So like Weiss Schwartz has a Star Wars set, but it doesn't cost them as much to purchase the IP because there's less fans
okay.
out there.
Interesting.
Cool.
But it's nice that it hit out there because in the Forbidden Games worlds, I got to use my Star Wars deck box, but nobody knew what Star Wars Unlimited was, so I didn't get hit by the clause where you're not allowed to have other IPs.
That's funny.
But now I'm gonna need to get a new deck box. I see how it is. Getting hit on every side.
Real quick pause. Inferno 5 said he got his he was in the Australia PQ and he got his day one buy, and
Nice.
he said
And he'll
he's
be
in
there.
Galactic. So congratulations to you on getting that. That is awesome. Yeah, man, it's I'm really excited to see Worlds and everything. And that I wasn't going to talk about this because we are kind of getting towards time, but just I want to talk since we are kind of talking real quick. Regionals
We are
is coming up this weekend, and expectation of the event. Real quick, two of you were there. What are you expecting to make me hyped up for this event? Because I'm already excited to go based off of what I've heard from Sunny because you were there. But if you were somebody going, what should they hopefully be expecting at this type of an event?
Can I go first, Sunny? Because I don't have the
Yeah.
cross-region experience, but I would say, all right. I mean, I didn't even wait for you to say yeah before I say what I would say.
Yeah,
but,
you go first.
Have a guess. You can do whatever you want.
But no, I would say, in terms of meta, make sure you can beat Savine, get that on lock, and make sure you can beat Bosk. And if you can beat both ends, your deck's probably all right. In terms of the actually playing there, the thing is, right? For regionals, like you expect it to be like this kind of super event where everyone's like hyper competitive, ready to play, But when you get there, everyone's just kind of nice. It's one of the good things about this game is that everyone's just happy to play. And it makes the event like really, really good. Because you don't sit. Well, I mean, you might, but it's very rare that you sit across somebody who you can crack a joke to and they'll just look at you deadpan and be like, "I'm playing my card." You know what I mean? Like, overall, even if you're not going to do like super well, I don't think anybody walked away from Lille and was like, "That was a bad experience." I think everyone had a good time. But
Yeah.
go on,
Yeah,
Sam.
I agree there. In the US, sometimes we get that mentality of not as necessarily being that friendly in tournaments. But when I was at Lille, every single player was happy to play. That I had been not only the ones that I was sitting across and playing, but just walking around the room. Smiles on everyone's faces, discussions, excitement about different formats, Twin Suns, right? I saw people like holding signs up, asking for people to play with for casual Twin Suns, right? And then people find them and then play, right? I hope we get some of that in the US because I don't think that level of excitement for the game is there, quite frankly. Like in terms of demeanor. What you described, Joshua, I do think in the US we have a little bit of work to do there. Yeah, but maybe that has been like backlash with some of the events that have happened in terms of sectors, right, and how they've been set up. And that will be cleared because it's some of those issues are fixed with tournament structure and then prize wall that puts people on a downer going into the event or during the event itself, right? But we'll see. Lille was great. This regional, I'm really hyped for it. I hope they do a lot of the same stuff that they did at Lille.
So, if something was going to be imported from Lille to a regional,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't import the hype, the Twin Suns, etc. But what would be like one thing that you would try and take across?
If I had to pick it, I would do the live stream setup and the dedicated casting, all of that. I don't know if that's going to be quite to that level as it was in EU. Fan Infinity did an incredible job with that, right? And in the US, some of ours are like in between that professional level and community driven, right? So I think for the regional that is coming in Minneapolis, it's still going to be like that. It's going to be somewhere in between. But aside from that, I think we got to import that prize wall and side event structure, because those side events were popping at Lille. You were playing through the whole tournament, so maybe you didn't necessarily see all of this, but every single time that one side event filled for draft or pod, the immediate next one was firing. And that was from like noon onwards from day one, because we started a little bit earlier in Lille than we do in the US, the tournament. So from noon onwards, all the way in day one, Saturday, throughout the end of day two, Sunday, right? And I got to play, and I guess even though I was like all the way until the end of day one, I didn't play in any side events day one. Day two, I got to play in like 5 or 6 pods and racked up those tickets. Prize wall. There was like lines we had to go through to get the prizes. So it was, we saw some of that at Richmond, but it was even more so at Lille. And I hope that translates in Minneapolis.
I think part of that is to do with the prize wall just being like affordable and good. 'Cause
Yes,
you're more
it was great.
you're more excited to do the side events, going, I only need this many tickets, and then I can get the playmat I want. You know.
Yeah.
And the playmats were so good at the regional. We have the same ones, so definitely that's going to be the case in Minneapolis.
Yeah. I think 100%. The side event participation is definitely up there because, like, the vibe's gonna drop if people, you don't make day 2 and you're like, well, why am I gonna go to the venue again? But if they're
Right, yeah.
going, we're doing all these great side events. They had Gunslinger with the devs, things like that. Just it doesn't even have to.
Oh yeah. That's another thing I hope that they do, and I assume that they will do it because this is FFG's headquarters in Minneapolis, right? So yeah, I mean they will 100% do that similar like play with the devs, get cards signed by the devs that they did in Lille.
Yeah.
Maybe even to a greater extent here in the US, which is nice.
Damn, here we go. You cooking. But yeah, it's just anything to just get people to want to come back on day 2 if they didn't make day 2 and just be excited to play the game.
I really want them, at least for us. I mean, anywhere really. I want these sectors or regionals to have like a second event on day 2. So what Magic
we
had,
had that. We have
Oh, you did?
what did you guys
Yeah.
have?
Well, that is not, I guess, what Ryan is referring to.
Yeah.
So we had like a premier 4-round event that's been happening at every sector, right?
I'm
What
talking,
Ryan?
I'm talking about an additional like competitive event
like a
that people
PQ.
can.
Sorry.
Like a small PQ.
Okay, yeah, they didn't have that. Yeah,
I
we
would-
have
I
it
would
in
think
the
it'd be awesome.
Forbidden card game, but I hope
Yeah.
Star Wars has it where it's like if you didn't make day 2, here's an entire like fresh slate, new competitive event for you to do.
That'd
And
be
I
cool.
just hope they chuck tickets at you so you can go and get the playmats you want.
100%. Like that was one of the cool things was like in Magic, Star City Games would run on Saturdays. They would do like one format, and then Sundays they would do 2 formats. And then it started to be so popular and so many people that they only did one event as like their main event, as like the top one. So like imagine you had your sector, and then if you didn't make day 2 of their sector, you could play in a PQ on the Sunday. And that's what Star City was doing. And they were basically, it was like a 10K for the main event, and then you would play like a 1 or 2K as your second event would be like the prizing. And
Right.
I think that would be absolutely awesome to do. And I talked to I want to say it was Corey was his name, and I'm awful with names, but he was the representative for FFG at Richmond, and he was saying, that's not something that they won't do, but they want PQs to be for the stores to handle. They want them to be more store based, and I can
But
respect
it's
that.
not a big event, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like I can respect that, but you do so few of these events already that this is people travel for these, right? Like I'm traveling. I'm taking a flight that's 2.5 hours, 3 hours to the center of the U.S. to play in an event. We're gonna have an Airbnb or a place to stay that 6 of us are gonna be chipping in for. This trip is gonna be for some people $500 to $1,000, depending on like $500 to $1,000, not 5,000. $500 to
You wanna get
$1,000.
the value in it.
Right, and it's like you want to go ahead and if you go to these events or you travel to them and you don't do well in the first one, like playing in a side event, while that for some people is fun, if you were a competitive player that maybe you just wasn't your day, which does happen to all of us, you want to play in another competitive event. You don't want to just like, all right, well, I guess I'll sit in the hotel because there's nothing to do.
100%.
So,
Yeah.
So when you meet your FFG guy, Corey, again, can you ask him why I don't get any community spoilers, please? Because apparently I'm just a nobody.
I'll make sure to ask him if we can get some community spoilers. Yo,
Yeah, we gotta get
we'll tag team it.
push for
You
Team
need
Secret
some
and
first, so,
Yehosera.
okay.
Both of us, we need Team 62 and Team Secret to both get spoilers. That's what we need.
Yeah.
We need to get those.
Yeah,
Team,
I don't have any of those.
Yeah.
this is maybe bad of me. I don't actually know what your team's name is. I just in my head think it's Team 62 because of like that's just like in my head.
My team is Team 62, but I'm
Yeah,
on BVS. I'm not allowed to say bad words about what the name is called anymore. 'cause I got told
B
off.
is in Bravo.
Okay.
B is in Bravo, V Victor, S is in Sierra.
Yeah.
Okay.
Black Vault. I'm not allowed to say
I got you.
anything.
I got you.
I'll Google this later.
Yeah. You
Okay,
can send it in the DM.
I had a quick hitter. I wanted to go down the line very briefly. It's very early in the spoiler season, but just starting with Joshua, like, what do you want to see from set 5? Like, card, archetype, whatever you'd be most excited about.
I was going to loop back real quick and say about the whole day 1 event into a day
Sure.
2 like good event. One of the best events I've been to was a 1K tournament where they just on the Saturday and the Sunday just had 2 different 1Ks instead of having it spill over.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
if you flop the Saturday, at least you didn't travel to then like sit around in
Right.
a hotel, and then you
Yeah,
got to like
that's a
do
great
it
idea.
on Sunday. But yeah, in terms of the new set, I tend not to read too much about the new set. I saw a 4/2 hidden creature, and I thought that's going straight in my Quinnland.
That does look good. Is there anything that you like would want to see though? Not even like spoiler related, just like force unit or whatever, like something you
I
think would be cool.
really want a powerful villainy leader because they keep banning them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Kira needs some competition for villainy.
Yeah. Man, the new set looks so good so far. I'm really there's some really good Qui-Gon Jinn. That I'm telling you, that leader seems crazy. I think that leader's crazy. He has potential to be very powerful and very, very broken.
Okay.
What about you, Sonny?
So I had a few wishes from like just a Star Wars fan perspective going into the set when the namesake of the set was Legends of the Force, right? And one of those has been answered, right? Ryan just mentioned Qui-Gon Jinn has been one of my favorite Star Wars characters since a kid. Phantom Menace was the very first movie I ever watched in the theater, right?
Phantom Menace was the first. Sorry, Phantom Menace was the first movie I watched, and I swear when Darth Maul pulled that second lightsaber out,
Yes.
Yeah, that was insane.
a banger. You remember that for life, man.
Yeah. So Qui-Gon Jinn we got, and he looks great. My other wish, and this is one I don't believe unless I'm late on it, is a Ahsoka leader that is better than the Kid Ahsoka coordinate one that we got, right?
Yeah,
that's more
that'd be sweet.
Force oriented because Ahsoka is one of my favorite characters.
What do
And
you
then
guys have?
I was hoping for like a Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan. That's great, but the one that we see is
He's
not
good.
that great.
He's good.
Yeah, I think
He's
it's
a 3/5 with Sentinel. That's a good.
I think he's okay.
I think he means the leader.
Yeah.
Doesn't
So
he
those are
just
my
force you?
those were my wishes. Now,
So-
one of my kind of wishes that is like against what I see happening thus far is so far in the game, up until set 4, I have not felt like any set has power creeped the previous set. Right? There have been individual interactions and cards, leaders that have been super strong from each set. but the set as a whole hasn't like invalidated the card pool that has come before it. And I almost see that like coming to fruition finally in this set, and I hope it doesn't fully become the case, right? So it's not like a wish, but it's like a wish that something doesn't happen, right? So we'll see. But what we've seen so thus far, I understand the excitement around it because so many strong stuff we've seen. I just hope that it doesn't invalidate everything that has come before it thus far.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll just piggyback off what Joshua said. It's like, yeah, they do just keep banning all the villainy leaders. And like, I love Kira, but like, you know, people rag on me all the time, like, oh, you're still playing Kira. It's like, what other leader can I play in this shell? Like, tell me. Like, there's not, yeah, but there's not like a lot of options if you want to play villainy. So like, yeah, it'd be really cool if like,
Newt Gunner.
you know, some of the
Ron
commands.
is-
There's one more
is-
vigilance leader that could be good. Talzine looks really cool. Maybe one of the command villainy ones will be good. So we'll see.
I'm already getting told off for my comments about the team name. It's not fair.
So what I want out of the next set, I am actually in the opposite camp that you are, Sonny, on what you don't want. I actually want a set that's very powerful.
Okay.
Because
Fair.
we are currently in a world where that one is a lot of what a lot of these decks are. You look at all these decks, and like Sabine is a majority set 1 and some set 2 cards. Set 2 has smuggle cards, and those are really powerful, obviously, but some of the best cards in the game are from set 1. Luke, Devastator, Avenger, Darth Vader. Resupplies in multiple sets, but those
Cunning.
viewing reinforcements, like those cards are set 1 cards, and they are like the pillars of the game. With that set eventually going to be rotating, we are going to need another pillar set. And I think that if whether it's this one or it's the third one, we are going to need a new very powerful set to supplement this. And maybe they decide to make reprints or have a core set. I don't know. But I actually am on the opposite end of that one.
I think there's like 2 ways to go about it. They can tone it down, which is what they've been doing. So set 1 is the anomaly.
Right.
And then once they've got their act together, there's a new power level, which you can sort of see coming in from set 3 onwards.
Is that good for the game for the next, 8 months? Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Like, I mean, the set 1 cards, they have some synergy with the set 5 cards because there's some strong force cards, you know, and you know, maybe it's scuffed. Maybe set 1 dominates for the next 2 sets, but they're gonna go, and then you've got the new power level from, because set 4 is meant to be the new set 1.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
That's fair.
The power level of this set isn't very high. Of set 4 isn't very high, so maybe that's where they want the game to be, and you know that's fine if they do. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe they're like set 4's weak, and then set 5, 6, maybe set 8 is the new set 1. You know, something like that. I don't know, but it's fine for now. I've no complaints with it. The only complaint I have is that Smuggle is the single best extra deck mechanic I have seen in a card game, and they printed it for 1 set.
Yeah,
because
I do think that's a great mechanic.
Yeah, like every card game needs an extra
sure.
deck. Yeah. But the issue is you have extra decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where your extra deck is better than your main deck.
Yeah.
Like the extra deck is your entire plan. In Final Fantasy, your Limit Break deck, which is your extra deck, is the cards in there are cards you can't have in your main deck, and they're just stronger. But in this game, they went, what if your extra deck is cards that you already are playing, but they cost more? And it's like, well, that's just good. Because you're not like you're not power creeping anything. It's just these are the cards that you would play, and now you get 2 ways to play them. And that is honestly one of the best ways I've seen to do an extra deck in a game.
I think it also really complements the resourcing system extremely well. When you get to go ahead and you have to make these choices, but you draw like your one of, but let's just say you're playing like a one of choose sides as an example. Well, in certain matchup, it's like crazy good, but in other matchups, it's not. But it's a late game card and it doesn't fit your curve. But you play a card like Tech, you can resource that, play it with Tech like later on. to make your fit, like your curve fit
I-
well.
Even Bazine,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Bazine is
Yeah.
kind of like
Wonderful.
premium because it's an exceptionally potent card to play for 2. Paying it for 4 is like it's not that good. It's not bad, but it's not you're not that excited by it. But you have to make this choice. Do I want a card that essentially says I draw a card because I don't have to play it from my hand, but it costs more, or do I want a higher power level card in my hand right now? And like, it's just it's a really well designed mechanic, and I'm so sad they printed it for one set and went, "Yep, that's the end."
Yeah, I really hope that they
Sprinkle
don't
it in.
keep repeating that. Yeah, they sprinkle more in set by set, right? I want to go back to your point, Brian, right? Like that you're most excited or hoping for a set that has high power level, right? The opposite of mine. I think there's a balance, right? I understand like that point of there being an anchor set, especially with the game with rotation, right? So maybe like something that is of the same power level or on par with set 1 is what I would hope for, but not beyond that. Is what?
Sure. And I mean, well, the way I look at it is like this. If I remove sets 1 through 3, and granted that's hard to do because this image of the next rotation's not even close to being fleshed out, right? And you look at JTL and you're like, okay, this set as it exists, do I feel like this represents archetypes in the game? And honestly, no. There's the archetypes that are represented by the leaders are supplemented because of the first 3 sets, like Piet, capital ships. That deck plays like the best capital ships are in the first set. Like it's so good in that with those cards, right? And you're like, okay, is this archetype going to be good going forward? And then you're like, okay, what about like an aggro deck? You're looking at Kaz, that represents an archetype, but you look at that deck and a lot of those cards are in the first sets. And it's like these holes that exist currently are just missing a lot of tools. And we don't have now granted, like I said, it's not fleshed out, so there could be tools coming in the next 4 sets or 3 sets that we don't know about, but it doesn't those are holes that need to be filled. And that's where I want the power levels, like a power level of like a Millennium Falcon, right? Like that card's incredibly powerful. As we all know, you get rid of that out of the format, that's a hole that I don't know the game is better not having, is like my point. Like, is that a better situation to not have that versus having it? And I'm kind of interested
and
to
it's
see where it
even
goes.
set by set, right? Like we just discussed smuggle, right?
Sure.
So what happens when what?
It's like, is that coming back? Like, we want
Exactly.
that
Like what? Yeah, I was about to mention. Like what happens when set 2 is rotated away? Cards like Tech are gone, right? Well, are they going to sprinkle in any smuggle in other sets going forward? Is there going to be like a set with as much smuggle as set 2 again? Before that is the case, I don't know. Yeah,
it's gonna be interesting. Like we have a makeshift like Vader coming in with the 7/7 that finds a 3/3, which I think is really good in the new Jedi. But it's like we're losing U-wing reinforcement and we're losing Vader. We need a second card to like make on the villainy side. Are we looking at the late game of heroism and we're like Starhawk's cutting it? Like no, nobody's saying that. That card, while it's powerful, like that's a 6/9 for 9. Like that's so far in the at the end of the spectrum that you like compare that to like Devastator, which granted again the power level maybe like Joshua said is it's coming down and that's fine, but I don't know. I want to see what it's going to look like. That's something I want to see, but like what that was just an inverse to your point. What I really want to see out of this set is a graveyard based strategy.
I think I want to.
I love like in Magic there are graveyard based strategies where you can reanimate things. We have foundations for reanimate with Palpatine's Return, Unnatural. I forget Resolve. I want to say it's not. I know it's not
Unnatural Life. That card
Unnatural
is.
Life. Unnatural Life.
There's
You've got
second as well.
Those were good in a couple sets.
well, like we have Trench, right? Like Trench's effect puts cards naturally into the graveyard. Dr. Aphra puts cards in the graveyard. So we have these leaders that can fit these archetypes, but we just like need the payoffs. We need like efficient payoffs to do this. And that's what I want to see. And I think that the the Night Sister. What are they're called? I forget what this like night something. I think it's just knights.
Yeah.
Is that what it's? Is
Just
that what their
knight.
keyword is? Just night.
Oh,
Yeah.
the trait is just night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Night,
But they're
yeah.
it's the Night Sisters and everything, right? Like they
Mhm.
have a lot of synergies with like graveyard. It seems like on death effects and things, which is really cool. But it's like,
Mhm.
okay, give us some reanimation. Like give us like cards that are going to do this that play into these graveyard strategies because we're going to lose smuggle. Now we need like another extra resource type of strategy, and I think that's where it would come
Yeah,
from.
a way to play it that's not your hand, in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's something I want to see. I graveyard strategies are consistently powerful, and they can be too powerful. But I think that there are a lot of people that do like reanimation effects and reanimator strategies, and I think that bringing that would be a really powerful. Like it would not only bring another group of people into the game, but it's also going to go ahead and be a powerful strategy that is enjoyable to play.
Now, Ryan, is that like a immediate wish? Do you see something in the meta that you like Trench, for example, that you would want immediately in this next set, or just future in general?
I mean, I would love to have it immediately. I would if the next set represents graveyard strategies. I'm like we already have like a blink pseudo strategy showing. If there was a graveyard based strategy, I would really look into that. Like that is I liked when JTL first came out, the on death strategy that Thrawn represents. I looked at a lot. I was really in on it because you could take advantage of exploit with the on death triggers, and I was like really big into it. And like I was playing I think it's a 6/5 droid that when it dies makes a bunch of droids with Thrawn, but it has exploit and like malevolence with all these cards. And I just have like a ton of droids, and it was just a really good exploit strategy. The reason I stopped playing it was because Ryan went ahead and decided to go or a turbo laser salvo on his Vader led unit and literally eliminate my entire board. And then I repopulated with all my droids because they were on death triggers. And then he just went ahead and followed up with an overwhelming barrage, and I was like, all right, this deck's in the bin. I just threw it away. So that was how that strategy went. But I like on death. It's an on death. It can be a very powerful strategy, and graveyards can as well. But they also can be very rewarding when played and done well, I think.
The issue is, right, all those stuff are basically keywords and archetypes that FFG just said no to.
Yeah, I want them to
They
make
just
them. I want them.
randomly they just decided it's not playable. You're just like, okay, cool.
Well, I mean, exploit was
Smuggle.
an insanely powerful mechanic, and then they just dropped the ball on that, and somehow.
Well,
like-
yeah, they just decided it's not going to be good. The end.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
Smuggle, they didn't say no to, but they didn't print any more of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had a good idea, and then they just they like they were. It's like they were running a race, and they were just like they were right there at the finish line, and then they just stopped and like
No,
turned
this is
left.
too good.
They were like at the finish line, and then they just like turned left and never crossed. They just went backward. They just like nope.
Yeah.
You guys have coordinate instead.
Kind of, yeah.
God,
You want to
Lord.
you want coordinate, and you're just like, how on earth
Oh.
Exactly.
in Star Wars Unlimited have I got 3 units,
Yeah.
and not won the game on the spot?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like that mechanic is like crazy to me. It's like why this
And
is
the thing
this is
is-
what you guys thought was great. Like, come on now.
With the coordinate guys, like the units are bad, and coordinate makes them a normal unit, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Shouldn't they be a normal unit? And if I coordinate, I win.
Yeah,
It's like, what?
Yeah.
This even makes sense.
yeah. And there's
Like
so
A-list
few good
Sakura.
ones. Oh,
A-list
God.
Sakura should have like 1 to 2
Ambush.
keywords.
Should have ambush. That card should
Not
just
even-
have ambush.
Even Overwhelm. I'll settle for Overwhelm, and the idea is you have to play it with ECL to get the ambush. Like, even Overwhelm. And instead, they're like, it's just a 6/5. What?
I hate that card so much.
If you have 3 guys that takes no damage, and you're like, it's not going to die to damage, it dies to every kill spell in the game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a Swift Breeze kills this one. That was
Please.
when that card got printed. People were very hyped about it, and I was like, "This card is awful." Like, if you're not playing ECL, and even if you are, you get one chance to use it, and if you don't have coordinate, that card is unplayable.
If you don't have coordinate, the card they printed in the set prior, the Poe Dameron, that's got a
Yeah, that card's got way
a
too
lot
much
more
text.
text
Yeah, exactly, and you don't
and
even
more stats and more
Yes.
stats.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
absurd.
coordinate is the only coordinate that I see played lately is the one in the Vader
Plo Koon.
Cunning because
You see Plo Koon.
and Plo Koon, yeah.
Yeah, Plo Koon, for sure.
Close good.
Plo
I
Koon's
don't
like
like
the best one. That like,
Plo
period.
Koon makes me so mad, man.
Yeah.
They flip Quinnland and they play Plo Koon and they put 13 stats in play.
They never don't have Plo Koon. That's the tilting part. They never don't have Plo Koon.
I'm waiting for a 5-mana card that removes 13 stats to balance out the board.
There's a 6-mana
Yeah.
one that deals 8
Savage
points
Press.
of stats.
6. It's a bit late, man. They
I
do it
will-
on
yeah.
5, and then they hit my base for 9,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, we're in the
I mean,
we're in the play.
Qui-Gon.
The
Qui-Gon's
Plo
really
Koon
good though.
blender.
The new Qui-Gon unit.
The unit is amazing.
That
Yeah.
card-
It looks
I-
good.
Can you? This is just like the sequence in my head that's going to be going on. You're going to go like, Qui-Gon ambush, kill something. They don't if it like at the end of turn, right? Like so they can't do anything or they can't kill it. And then you go ahead and you bounce it with Qui-Gon leader, and then you put like into play Plo Koon the next turn, right? And then you're like, next turn, play my home 1, get back any 3-drop I want, like say blue leader, because that card's really good. You just get blue leader, bounce your you can now attack with your Plo Koon, get your force back, bounce your home 1, and play your ambushing Qui-Gon and kill 2 things if you wanted to. We just played 15
Pretty good.
15 resources worth of cards. I'm sorry, not 15. You played 18 resources worth of cards.
I still don't understand how you reached the 7th mana turn.
As a green yellow deck?
That's pretty odd.
I can't see your face. I can't tell if you're like joking. We have Mon
No,
Mothmas.
I think it's really hard to reach the 7th mana turn without hitting some ramp or something. You need a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be
I
just
think that
ramp
there's.
deck.
I mean, I think you can definitely hit that with a yellow green deck. I think you can. I think that's not nearly as difficult.
Yeah,
as
yeah, yellow green makes sense. Yeah, for sure. But if it's yellow something else, it might be your top end in that deck or something.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
the final card you play.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, but
Right.
like even if you're like just like let's say like yellow blue, right? Like you have tools in that deck to definitely reach the end game there, and
You
you can just like you get access to Luke and Qui-Gon in that deck. That seems kind of silly.
Well, you get Luke, Qui-Gon, Enifis, and Han Solo. And,
Exactly.
Yep.
You've
you
got
might-
you
you
got a
might-
lot of tools in that deck.
you might finally have enough top end.
Well, it's like
And redemption.
yeah, you get redemption. Can you that's a sequence, right? You just like play your redemption, heal, bounce your redemption, play a Luke. Like yeah, that was fun. Or like a Han
redemption.
Solo or
Jump
an
to
emphasis.
light speed.
So there's yeah, I think the Qui-Gon leader has some like crazy potential, and depending on like what ETB effects and
Mhm.
like we have, I think that it's got a lot of potential to do some really powerful things. So, but with that, does
Fire
anybody
on the
else
floor.
any other things you guys want to talk about or mention?
Oh.
Floor's yours. If you want to shout out.
Hey, you guys still say what you're gonna say, and then I'll plug myself one final time.
No, good. Andrew, Sonny, anything you guys got?
No,
Good.
no, go ahead and plug yourself.
All right, plug away.
I wasn't prepared for this. I was meant to mentally prepare while you guys were. That's fine.
So let's start with this. You got what? Friday, you've got your seminar.
Right. Tomorrow we got live stream where I'm answering all the spillover questions from my last seminar. Then Friday we have a new seminar covering Kira and Han 2. I will be sure to bring up the ECL because I feel like the conversation we had earlier was very good about the ECL and it highlighted
thanks.
a lot of the weaknesses that it did. It highlighted the fact that you can actually capitalize on a window that the deck is weak in. Because mana turn 6 is Kira's weakest mana turn. But
Sure.
if you have to bridge that with an ECL, get over the hump, like ECL Gideon Hask is my go-to. Even ECL Steadfast Battalion, to be honest.
Yeah.
A lot of good targets.
something, and then be able to use the Kira effect to give the thing that you just snowballed with a shield. You know, I'm definitely gonna bring that up. But yeah, that's I lost myself. Yeah, Friday is hand 2 and Kira. And then the article covering Ray is gonna most likely be Wednesday. But
Nice.
the yeah, I mean, you know.
So all of this in time for the regional.
Yeah.
In
In,
time for the regional. I didn't
in the
even
US,
know
you're not
this
even going to be.
weekend.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
So if
appreciate
you
All
want
right,
to
so Ray's going to be like 18% at
18%
Minnesota.
Ray,
And
you know,
and where can
some
we
handsome
all
guy.
find this?
You can all find it on my Metafy or my Discord. But wait, let me. Should I?
Let me
I
go
don't
ahead.
even know.
Did you post your Metafy
We-
earlier or no?
We can
Damn,
put
I
it
still
in
had it on my
the
copy paste. Here we go.
we can put it in the description of the video.
And that'll have
Oh,
links to my Discord, and that's got everything. And the other thing is, some people say that they're like hesitant to message me because you know they're just some guy messaging me, but ultimately, I'm very happy to talk Star Wars. So do not feel afraid to message. I'm a very friendly guy, despite what you heard here tonight.
I'm also going to go ahead and another place that you can go ahead and find is I'm going to go ahead and get your Discord link and I'm going to post it in the chat. So this is another
Oh,
place.
I
If
can
you
give you one.
you got something for me?
I can give you a Discord link.
Oh,
I need
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Let's do that.
I need to make the link, and then it
I can
ends in
just-
7 days.
I've got that. I've got it. I've already got it. I can just paste it for you. You don't have to worry about that.
I'm so bad with technology. It's a wonder. I
go.
managed to make a bunch of these things.
I'm gonna spam post it there for a bunch of people. Can't miss it. There's a bunch
There
of
you
them. And I don't have your Metafy on hand. Can you go ahead and link
I
that?
put it.
or
It's
something?
just metafy.gg/ and then at my name. So I put it in the thing just above.
All right. Perfect. So go check out the articles and the seminars. And the seminar is going to be in your Discord, correct? I know you were saying you were going to.
Yep. So the seminars. Oh, I mean, everything will be like through my Discord. The seminars will be through my Discord until there's. I mean, I'm already breaching the point where there's too many people. I have to do it through Metafy. But for now, you know, sneak in, get it through the Discord.
Sure.
There we go. So
And the live streams are through Discord always.
awesome. Well, if nothing else, everybody, thank you so much, Joshua. So thankful for having you on the podcast tonight. It was tons of fun. I had a great time just talking about Star Wars. The differences between the U.S. and UK are always really fascinating, and you know, getting your philosophy on a lot of things is awesome. And everybody who's watching or listening, definitely go ahead and check out Joshua Yehosera's Discord if you have any questions. He's got his Metafy also that I'll make sure to have in the description with the timestamps. This was a much longer episode than normal, but I think there's a lot of really good things in here. So please like, subscribe, hit the bell to both ours, Team Sekrit here, if you're not already, and Yehosera's Metafy, subscribe, pay that man, and Fantasy Flight, get us spoilers. Get Team Sekrit spoilers. We'll do it on stream. We'll do it live. And let's go ahead and get Joshua and his team also spoilers. They definitely deserve it.
I'm a random. I have no influence on this game whatsoever.
Yeah, he's only like
You are the definition of an
dictated 2 metas.
influencer.
You've only dictated 2 metas, maybe 3. You know,
Nah.
like yeah, who knows? So again, thank you so much everybody for watching, and have an absolutely wonderful night. Bye.